A British car to beat the world.
Yeah, that's a classic car advert. But let's not forget the Metro wasn't the only big launch of 1980. The Blue Oval, Ford, they had a major announcement to make as well.
Ah, you're talking about the Mark III Escort, aren't you?
Yep, I am.
Yeah, it was 6 years after the Golf. Ford finally caught up with VW. They took the Escort and transformed what was a rear-wheel drive saloon originally into a front-wheel drive hatchback.
Yeah, it was a big deal. I don't know about you, but, I always liked the look of the Mark III Escort, Paul. I thought its styling, the proportions, they were spot on. And, of course, being a Ford, there was a different version to suit every buyer.
Oh, yeah, whatever your budget, whatever your requirements. I mean, in Britain, we had everything from a 1.1-litre shopping trolley through to the relative luxury, if you like, of the 1.6 gear. And, of course, for the hot hatch fans, there was the XR3 and the later XR3i.
Oh, yeah, fabulous cars. More than that, though, let's not forget that Mark III, that went on to spawn the RS Turbo, the RS 1600i, lots of other sporting greats. Ford knew exactly what it was doing with its latest Escort. It was perfectly timed, of course, to cash in on that hot hatch phenomenon.
It was perfect timing. But wasn't the Mark III Escort, wasn't that also produced in the US?
Yeah, well, kind of. There was an American-built Escort, also launched in 1980. That replaced the old Pinto. But aside from their fairly similar appearance, the European and the American Escorts, they didn't share as much DNA as you might expect.
No, fair enough. Well, the European Mark III Escort, that was certainly a big seller, particularly here in Britain. I tell you what, Rich, do you remember this great advert from 1980?
March 1980. Senior engineers arrive for final tests on the new Ford Escort. The challenge was to design the most efficient car we'd ever built. And in engineering, simple is efficient. The new Escort is a front-wheel drive hatchback with an extended boot. With the seat folded, there's 48.7 cubic feet of luggage space. It's a very roomy car. The features that contribute most to the Escort's low running costs are its specially developed high-efficiency engines, which require a minimum of servicing. And its efficient aerodynamics are the best in its class. The 1.6 does 103.8 miles per hour. The Escort has independent suspension all round, which helps it to cling on even in the wet. And every car undergoes a 20-stage body protection and paint process, our most efficient yet. The new Ford Escorts. Simple is efficient.
I do remember that. Yeah, 40 years ago. Now I feel seriously old.
Well, in fairness, mate, you are fairly old.
Oh, you cheeky blighter, you're not that far behind.
Well, OK. Anyway, while we're still on the subject of 1980 and 40th anniversaries, let's take a look at my second choice. And this might surprise you, but I'm going to go for the Rolls-Royce Silver Spirit and, of course, its Bentley Mulsanne cousin.
Oh, can't believe it. Something nice at last. Well, of course, I remember going to the 1980 Motor Show and visiting the Rolls-Royce stand, and there was the Silver Spirit. That was... Well, it was a crucial model, finally replacing the Silver Shadow after 15 years.
Yeah, the good old Silver Shadow, what a beast that was. It was getting on a bit by 1980, though, and although the Silver Spirit shared basically the same platform with certain modifications and the same 6.7-litre V8, it was very much a new design.
Yeah, it was bigger. Was it better?
Well, I think so, in many ways. I mean, it had to grow in size and stature. It was particularly important for the North American market, of course. It was a much-needed change. The Silver Shadow, it dated back to the mid-60s. And let's face it, by the start of the 80s, car design had evolved a lot since then.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I always felt that the Spirit, that was a bit too bland. It was a bit slab-sided compared with the lovely old Shadow. That was an elegant design.
It was elegant. It oozed elegance, didn't it? But yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I still think the Spirit was the right product at the right time for Rolls-Royce. And let's not forget, even more importantly, it marked the return of Bentley as a genuinely sporting marque.
Yeah, absolutely, too true. I mean, the original Mulsanne of 1980, and I used to smoke about in one once.
I can imagine.
That was just a Silver Spirit with a Bentley grille, so sad times, although, of course, the old T-Series was no different.
Well, that's true.
But then I think Bentley got its pride back with the arrival of the Mulsanne Turbo and the subsequent Turbo R, and that really turned things around.
Yeah, it did. I mean, I'll be the first to admit the Mulsanne Turbo, it had its issues. I mean, for what was a high-performance luxury car, the ride was rather soft, the handling was less than perfect, but the Turbo R, that really nailed it when that came along later on. I mean, you've got breathtaking power and performance, but finally you've got the kind of handling that pretty much any keen driver would get a thrill from.
Yeah, they tamed it. I remember when the first Turbo came along and we did the testing of it. I think it was at Donington, and one of the journalists, it was Dennis Jenkins, and said he thought it was the most dangerous car he'd ever driven because it had so much power. He was only joking, of course, but they really tamed it when the R came along.
Absolutely.
And that Turbo R, that became something of a legend in its own lifetime, Paul.
It did. It's a top buy, definitely.
Yeah, I can't believe what amazing value they offer today in the modern classic scene. I mean, they're not crazy money either to maintain if you know the right specialist to go to.
Yeah, by the right example, full service history, and it's you can maintain and run one on a sensible budget, but the purchase prices are very tempting. It's definitely a model we should come back and take another look at in a future show. But in the meantime, Rich, just listen to this great clip. It's from a Silver Spirit promotional film that was released by Rolls-Royce in 1980, the launch year.
Today, excellence takes a new form. The Rolls-Royce Silver Spirit, bringing together a tradition of hand-built craftsmanship with the world's most advanced engineering techniques. The new shape of Rolls-Royce, lower, smoother, but cast in the mold of quality. No detail is accidental. No element an afterthought. A concept carved in metal, a shape to live with. Built for the future, but honouring the past.
Yeah, brilliant. You know, if I'm allowed only one more choice from 1980, we may have to revisit this subject in a future show, because I'm already thinking of more great cars launched that year.
Yeah, me too. You're obviously thinking of the good old Fiat Panda, aren't you?
I can assure you that I was not thinking of the Fiat Panda, although I've just got a feeling that you're probably a fan of the Panda.
Well, I got to admit, yes, I am. And I'll argue the point with you one day as to why it was such an important launch.
Oh, can't wait. But no, I'm actually thinking not of the Panda. I'm thinking of some proper cars of 1980, cars like the Lotus Esprit Turbo and, of course, the mighty Audi Quattro.
Oh, the Quattro. Well, that was certainly a game changer, wasn't it? And again, no doubt we'll be talking about it soon. So, come on then, what's your final choice from 1980?
Well, I'm going to surprise you, Paul, I think, because it's actually another model from British Leyland.
Oh, hang on a minute. You were mocking me for choosing the Metro, and now you've gone the BL route?
Yeah, but this is something a bit more special than the Metro.
Okay.
1980 also saw the American launch of the Triumph TR8.
Of course it did, yeah. So basically the V8 version of the TR7.
Yeah, exactly. And it's an important one to mention here because 2020 marks not only the 40th anniversary of the TR8, it also marks the 45th anniversary of the good old TR7. So that makes it something of a double celebration.
Yeah, it does indeed. I don't recall any TV ads for the TR8. I mean, it was such a short-lived model after all.
For sure.
But British Leyland, they certainly pushed the TR7 in America, where Triumph sports cars, well, they traditionally sold extremely well. In fact, the first 18 months of TR7 production was US spec only. So let's have a listen to one of those early adverts.
America is coming home in the shape of things to come. Triumph's bold slashing wedge, TR7, at a bold slashing price, $49.95. Triumph TR7, the shape of things to come. At a price you can afford today, $49.95.
Interesting. It's such a shame that BL took so long to expand the TR7 range, really, Paul, because This was a sports car that had real potential, didn't it?
It did. I mean, the world, though, sadly, was running scared of open-top sports cars at the time.
Yep.
I mean, let's remember there was the prospect of American safety legislation that would effectively outlaw new roadsters, new soft-tops. And any manufacturer in the process of developing a new sporting model was understandably steering clear of the convertible.
Absolutely.
Which explains, of course, why models like the Jaguar XJS and the TR7, both of which launched in 1975, well, they were initially available only in hard-top coupe guises, of course.
Yeah, I mean, we were told that the convertible was dead in the States, and it certainly affected the TR7 sales potential, no doubt about that. And BL, perfectly understandably, they took 4 years before they launched the convertible version in the US. That was the V8 versioned TR8 arriving in 1980, by which time the Triumph Wedge, well, that was nearing the end of its career.
Well, that's true. I mean, I think the TR7 convertible, yeah, that came along in '79, and then your beloved TR8 the year after. But
that's it.
Then,
I think it was fewer than, 2,500 TR8s were built.
Something like that. It wasn't a lot, was it?
Almost all of them sold in the States. Had it been launched sooner, well, who knows how successful it could have been.
Well, exactly. I mean, it had all the right ingredients, didn't it? You know, it was a two-seater, it was a soft top, had V8 power. Exactly the kind of sports car that should have been a big seller in America.
Absolutely. I've driven a couple of TR8s. They really are a pretty decent steer. I mean, they sound great. They go well, and they've got a big fun factor.
Yeah, it's such a shame it didn't get to enjoy a longer career. But you know what? I'm not going to argue with your choice, Rich. It might be a bit left field, but okay, the TR8 was a significant new model in 1980.
Oh, you mean we're actually in agreement?
Well, it does happen.
Well, occasionally. Anyway, let's come back to the anniversary theme soon, Paul, because I've just had a thought. Do you realise the Range Rover and the lovely Triumph Stag, they'll both be celebrating their 50th birthdays in 2020?
They will, won't they? Yeah, absolutely. As will the Mark III Cortina.
Trust you to go for the least exciting choice.
You know me too well.
Anyway, time for a quick break.
Classic Car Talk is brought to you in part by Mayfair Financial Services. Go to mayfairfs.co.uk. You're listening to Classic Car Talk with Paul and Richard.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Welcome back. What's next, Paul?
Well, Rich, I've been thinking about some of the odd celebrity pairings we've had over the years.
Oh, that's so true. I mean, just what did Wilma Flintstone ever see in Fred? And what about that thing with Tom Cruise and Cher? Cher, while we're talking about the great songstress herself, which would you choose, Paul? Friends with Cher or Cher with friends?
Oh, dear. OK, moving right along. Anyway, it's 50 years ago exactly that since one of the weirdest hookups came along, when Maserati of Italy and Citroen of France started making out behind the workshop one night. And, of course, they spawned the glamorous and rather exotic Citroen SM. Now, folk who own these slightly scary beasts tend to congregate at a place called Paragon Classics near Kettering, which is where the part of the Bovingdon family that's not presenting Top USA collects, repair and restore SMs, including the one owned by Mr. Wheeler Dealer himself, Mike Brewer.
Oh, yeah, you're referring with Top Gear USA. That's Jethro Bovingdon. But joining us today is the father and son pairing, Roger and Nathan Bovingdon from Paragon Classics. Welcome. Roger, how did you get into SMs? Were you a Citroen man originally or a Maserati fan or neither?
My father had one new in 72.
A new SM?
New.
Woo.
Well, I say new. It was an ex-demonstrator from
Nice.
S.E. Tomlinson. He bought a lot of Citroens and finished with a DS23 EFI.
Nice.
And then swapped that in for the SM. Unfortunately, he was away a lot. So I used to borrow.
Ideal.
Which was good because he always left it full of petrol and I always left it empty when
of
he came
course.
back. And it was just the car, I think, as far as I was concerned. 25 years later, I bought one. And I've had it for 20-odd years now.
Wow, so you know a bit about them by now.
I know a bit about them. I don't know mechanically as much as Nathan, but I know a bit about the car.
Yeah, I'd say you do.
So, Roger, this is quite an important year for the SM, isn't it? I believe it's the golden anniversary, 50 years.
It is, yes. And I've had it for... I've had one for half that length of time.
Well, that's quite an achievement.
And I'll try for the 75th.
We'll look forward to interviewing you for that. But the SM, it was a bit of a game changer for Citroen, wasn't it? I mean, that link up with Maserati, I think, didn't Citroen acquire Maserati a couple of years earlier? And
yes.
The SM was the end result of that?
Yeah, the SM was... I think Citroen's idea was to build a Grand Routier in the sort of tradition of Delage and Delahaye and people like that.